Alright, welcome to the channel, and today we'll be talking about the iFi Signature iDSD and the iCAN, and what makes these two unique and kind of what their use cases are and which ones I preferred or how they work, that kind of thing. I'll try to make this a quicker video because I am under the weather. In fact, I have not had the best couple of weeks getting back from the Philippines. I've been sick pretty much every other week, which is rare. Even my wife was like, "What's going on? You never get sick." So it's been a whole rough time. But anyways, let's get into the iFi iDSD and the iCAN. And both of these were sent out by iFi. They're not asking me to say or do anything other than my honest opinion regarding both of these devices. And they will be going back to iFi once this video is completed. So starting off with the kind of all-in-one do-all, which is the iDSD. And this one is, honestly, they're actually both the same. Like, the only difference between the two really is that the iDSD has the DAC, the streamer, it has all the digital stuff, whereas the iCAN is just the amp. And I believe it's more or less the exact same amp in both of these. It's just that one doesn't have a DAC and streamer, so you can pair this one with whatever DAC or streamer you want. And then the iDSD is kind of all-in-one sit and do all kind of thing. And I think the other factor too is that the iDSD has some pro features that are actually pretty unique, in the sense that you have to like really want to set them, because on the back of this, it's pretty dark in here, but there's a little screw you can see on each side here. I think, is that it? No, it's there. So there's a screw right there, and then there's a screw right there. Not screw, but like little dial. But you have to actually have a tool to get in there and actually turn it to some pro features. So there's a pro output and a pro, I'm not sure what it would be. It's called sync mode. So it's like a pro sync mode. There's like a DARS, some kind of atom looking thing. Anyways, it's way outside my wheelhouse, so it's not something I would actually utilize, and nor did I utilize it, because I'm not a pro audio user. I am a consumer of audio gear at the end of the day. I am not a self-prescribed professional at all in this. I like listening to music, and I just have the opportunity to listen to cool gear and voice my opinion about it, which is just that, my opinion. So anyways, back to the build, sound, and all that fun stuff of the iFi iDSD. And so I'm going to go over build. It's going to kind of cover both of these because they're more or less identical, minus those slightly different things, but we'll talk about it at the same time. Build is aluminum, and it's really nice. I really dig the overall look of this device. It's small, it's pretty heavy, got a nice heft to it. Another cool feature of this is it has a tube in here, and it's a NOS General Electric, and I believe it's 5670. So it's I think you can swap it out, but it's you have to take the whole case off. It's a whole thing, but these should last for a very long time. And it has a really cool feature with that we can talk about in a bit. But overall, the build is solid. It has a really nice, very large rubber like plate almost here, which is one giant rubber foot basically. So it allows you to kind of move it around, and it will have a nice stickiness to it so it doesn't slide everywhere. And really dig on that. A little cool feature on the bottom as well. It's kind of beat up a little bit, but it actually has that General Electric logo in the bottom, right where the tube is. It actually matches the tube, so it's kind of cool feature. You have your input dial, which actually spins freely, which is a little bit weird for me, because like you can overshoot it and it's kind of loosey-goosey a little bit, which I wasn't the biggest fan. And that's same with the filter. The filter, it has the same thing where it just kind of free spins forever. Same with the input. So that can be problematic. Not greatly. It's just kind of like once you get used to it, you can kind of dial it in. Once you dial it in, it's good to go. Let's see here. Volume pot is really smooth, and you can get a remote control, and it can do IR, so you can control it from there. And if you power this down and you have the volume up, it automatically goes down to 0, which is kind of cool. Let's see here. It also has, on this one, it has a pretty cool little OLED display or LED display. It's blue, and it basically talks about your inputs, your outputs, what kind of filter you have on there. It's basically your little menu, so you can see everything that you're doing. On the back, you have your pretty standard fare inputs and outputs, power and power pass-through, which is kind of cool, or DC loop out, sorry. B&C sync in and out, which is unique. So a lot of pro audio stuff on the specific iDSD one, and then your Bluetooth antenna thing there. And then also on the front, there's a couple of like toggles here, and the toggles are very cool. This one, it has for your tube, so you can do a solid state amp, tube hybrid, and full tube. And then the cool feature about that is that when you flick that, it actually stays on solid state until the tube is warmed up enough to then switch over to the tube hybrid, or specifically to the tube, and then it clicks over, which is pretty cool. And same thing going backwards. And then on the other side, you have your gain switch, which is, see here, yeah, 0, 9, and 18 for the gain switch. Sorry, I'm a little bit dark here, but little gain switch there. Also for your inputs, 3.5, and then balanced, and then 1/4 inch. So you have all your the only balanced on this would be the 4.4 as far as the headphone jack, and so that's something to be aware of. So that's for the iDSD. Build is pretty great. As far as on the differences for the iCAN, more or less same thing, except for the inputs are going to be more versatile and a lot more of them, and outputs kind of deal. So you have balanced, and then 3 single-ended inputs, and then for outputs you have 1 balanced and 1 single-ended, and then more or less the same DC loop out and DC in. Let's see, and then you have an ESL link, which not gonna lie to you, I don't know what that is. I haven't really researched it, don't use it, so not a thing I would use. And then on the front, which is kind of the very standard for them, they have the dual balanced. So if you have like 2, 1 for each ear cup kind of thing, and then your balanced in the XLR balanced in the middle. Also has single-ended here, like a 3.5, and then a 4.4 on the other side. So that's kind of cool. The switches are your inputs on this side, which isn't a free flowing one. It's more or less just the 4. And then you have your, let's see here, X bass, which is kind of cool that you have this, because you can actually change how much, kind of like the on the Griffin, but instead of a button that you press, you actually can control how much X bass you have, which goes from off to 10 hertz, 20 hertz, and 40 hertz. Pretty cool. Then it has the same tube hybrid and tube plus toggle, as well as the gain toggle is the same. And then it also has the 3D feature, same as the X Space, I believe, on like something like their Griffin or some of the other stuff, X Space. But this one, you actually control it once again with the 4 different positions, either off, 30 plus, 60-30, or 90-60 for the difference of that spatial kind of thing. And then obviously you have your volume. And this one also has a remote control that you can actually control with it as well. So that's the only real differences between the two as far as build and what they are capable of in the input, output, and how they function. So going into my thoughts regarding overall build and quality of them, it's excellent. Aluminum, it fits really well on my desk. I really dug the kind of low profile, easy do all kind of thing. You plug it in and you have everything you need, and you kind of roll with it, which is nice. And it looks nice on the desk. I like that when you turn on the tube side, it actually has these little slits here for one cooling. You can see on the side there as well. But it has this, I think they even have little LED lights in there that are orange because it glows pretty good. Not like extravagantly like bright or anything like that, but has a nice glow to it, which is a nice touch. And I really dig that they have that little window there to allow for that. It makes it really very aesthetically pleasing. And then going into the sound of this, which will be different because between the two, because of the fact of the DAC. This one's obviously built in, and then the iCAN is not built in. I was utilizing for the iCAN mostly my TT2 and was kind of playing with it there, and I really enjoyed that combo a lot, actually. In fact, that was probably my preferred way of using these. But if you didn't want to have your external and you just want an all-in-one and be done, this is very hard to beat. Sound signature wise, I'm going to start with the tube, because that was kind of an interesting take that I had on that. I noticed with the tube, when you put it into tube hybrid and or tube plus especially, it made it have this almost concert hall kind of sound, like echo and reverb, and it made it very, I don't want to say artificially, like stage was big. It just had this very concert hall sound effect to it. Like, I don't know why that is. Like, if you've ever had like an old, not old, but if you ever had like a simulated concert hall on one of your like receivers or something like that. It kind of has that kind of reverb and echo kind of sound signature to it, and it's just there on some tracks, but on other tracks it gets very like overdone. So that was not my favorite. I did notice that if I went and played with the different digital like settings, so you can definitely like tweak it to your preferences. I did prefer, there's like a bit plus or like a bit perfect and bit perfect plus kind of thing, and then there's some like DSD and some other like digital filters that help with these things. I found myself preferring bit perfect or bit perfect plus in general, and just kind of leaving it there and not really diving too much into it, because too many options sometimes for me, it's just overwhelming, and I just want to listen to music and I want it to sound the way I want it to sound. But that's the niceness of having all those different filters, is you can, marry it to the way you like it and make it work for you. So for me, it was bit perfect and or bit perfect plus that made it sound the best with the specific iDSD. And then let's see here. The most I paired with was my Atrium Opens and Atrium Closed, and also my HD800s. Mostly HD800s for when I was gaming or watching YouTube videos or movies, something like that. But everything else mostly was Atrium Closed or Atrium Opens for all my sound listening signatures, that kind of thing, when I talk about that here in a second. Going to the iCAN, I actually preferred utilizing the iCAN as a separate, because that let me control the sound the way I wanted it to sound with my TT2, and I didn't have as much of a problem with that kind of that concert hall signature that I was getting with the iDSD. It's still there, but it wasn't as prevalent for whatever reason, and I'm wondering if that has to do with the digital filters, but here nor there. Overall, the sound signature was excellent. I did find myself preferring the solid state off of this over the tube and tube hybrid to tube plus, I should say. The solid state was very clean. It had a nice precision to it and percussion, like it has like, it wasn't, it was very dynamic, I guess you could say, which is kind of a cop-out, but it had just a really nice signature, really easy to get along with. I didn't have any issues with any kind of overly bright. The lows had nice punch and had nice like separation and linger where it needed to. It was pretty accurate, actually, from what I think is accurate. And I was enjoying, and they both had that, but I just preferred the iCAN because I think I could pair it, and I like having the separates and being able to control that chain of audio the most. That being said, though, the iDSD was excellent, and I did listen to this, for a very long time, for most things, actually. And for gaming and for music and everything else, this did excellently once I dialed it into my preferences, and I just really enjoyed having it on the desk, and it just was a very versatile and do-all kind of amp DAC all in one, and it was really lovely for that. So going into kind of what some tracks I listened to between the two of these, I'll bust out my notes, and I'll link all the tracks below. But the chain I was using was Qobuz into the TT2 or directly into the iDSD, and then my headphones I used specifically for these tracks just to do my notes and writing down was the Atrium Opens. Qobuz, the tracks were on the Atrium Open, and this one will be Wild Rivers, and the song was the acoustic version, Thinking About Love. And the things to pay attention to on this track is, remember this is the acoustic version, things to pay attention to are the male and female vocals. They're kind of singing at each other a little bit, and they kind of come in and out. But also the background details and the imaging and depth. Like it didn't have necessarily the most wide stage, but there was like an interesting depth and interplay between the instruments and the vocalist. But it did have like a narrow stage. The stage definitely wasn't as wide as I was thinking it should be with this kind of scenario. And then I did notice when you put it into tube plus mode, it did get this odd, that concert hall factor, which made it almost overly reverby or echoey, which on the that track already has, I think, built-in reverb and like kind of like that echo. So just something to be aware of. The next track down, I did about 4 songs overall, would be the live version of One More Night by Michael, I'm going to butcher this name, Kiwanuka. Once again, link below. But the things to pay attention with this one, it's once again the live version, One More Night. The things to pay attention are percussion, the male vocals, and the imaging and stage. I thought these were really cool, the way that they interplayed during the track as it went through, and I just enjoyed that song with this combo. It was really nice. And same with going between the tube plus. And I did that for all these and just kind of playing with solid state, tube plus. And I did find myself gravitating mostly to the solid state as my preferred amp signature with these, but the tube and tube plus is a nice touch, and it does allow for someone to kind of get an understanding of what tubes and how they work and sound. And it's not quite the tube sound that I would prefer, but it is a nice thing that you can kind of test the waters if you want to get into tubes or not, with it being relatively a long-lasting tube that you don't have to worry about. All right, on to the third track, and this one was To Stay, and this is a kind of like a DJ remix of Stay by Rihanna, I think. But anyways, it's To Stay by Plum, Plum, and there's little 2 dots above the U to make a smiley face. But anyways, this one, to pay attention to the bass low end. It's also very digital, that DJ factor. But also pay attention to the speed and control, because it has that digital speed and control where everything's super precise and clean. The imaging, the tightness of the notes, and the crispy clap and or sound bite, like that crispy percussion, and also there's like an actual like clap sound. So just pay attention to those things. It's kind of a really fun track to listen to. And then going into the fourth track, one of the things that I really liked with this one was that the lows. Like, I really dug this track as just a fun one. And this one is Way With Words by Bahamas. And it's just rich. Like, they had really rich vocals. The overall track just felt rich to me and warm. And this track, I was really digging it. I just thought it was just a fun track to get into, and I just dug on it a lot. After going over the audio and what I felt this sounded like, final thoughts. Solid state amp part of it is very clean, has really nice separation and imaging, and granted, most of this is going to come from your headphones or transducer of choice. That being said, I do find the solid state to be just a really neutral sounding. It didn't really lean warm or overly bright. It was like kind of like a Goldilocks sound signature for the solid state. The tube amp gets, like I said, it's also a very neutral tube sound to me. It has more of a kind of they leaned into the echoiness and reverb of a tube, but it's never got too warm or overly warm or very three-dimensional like most tube amps that I've heard tend to lean towards. But it was a very clean tube sound with a little bit of reverb and a little bit of that echo going on. So that's the things I noticed the most with the 2 stages, or 3 stages technically. But the solid state amp side of it was definitely my preferred, and it was just a very neutral, clean sound signature. It just had a really good control over the transducers I was utilizing, which would obviously be my ZMFs and the HD800 the most. Overall, I'd say it's definitely worth grabbing if you are into, like, even want to get like into that like prosumer audio kind of thing, and you want to start making music or what have you. I'm assuming that's what the iDSD would be utilized for, kind of like that step towards prosumers. That's what I would call that. But then the iCAN, I'd say, is just a fantastic solid state and tube amp that has a lot of cool features, that X bass and then the 3D or X space type dials there. You can actually kind of dial it in and get some really cool sound signatures out of it. Overall, who I think the sound signature is for, or who would like that, I mean, everybody would probably dig on it just because it's such a neutral one that you can actually feed it the different transducers, DACs, and that kind of thing, or your different headphones, and you can actually, it gets out of the way basically. So that's really cool. Moving into my final thoughts and who this is for, I would say just that, like, if you look for the iDSD, I would say that's more for someone looking to eventually maybe move into like a prosumer or pro world of music generation or audio kind of thing, just because of the feature set. And then the next piece I would say for the iCAN would be more of just for like just a high-end solid state with a nice little touch with that tube, because then you can kind of get the best of both worlds a little bit. Not necessarily the best of both worlds, but like you can get the taste of tubes and like what that means and how that works. And then it's just a solid state amp with a lot of cool inputs, outputs, and a lot of features and a lot of versatility with it. So with all the different inputs and outputs, you can do a lot with that. My preferred setup was with the iCAN with the TT2, just because I like the way the TT2 sounds, and it has a very smooth and like detailed sound signature, and I really liked pairing that with the iCAN, and it gave it just this nice signature that I liked a lot. The iDSD is no slouch, and then in that space. And I think that it's fantastic as an all-in-one and just prosumer, and even just if you're not even into the prosumer side of it, which I am not, just having it on your desk, kind of a do-all, it's actually quite excellent. I didn't have any issues with it at all. There was no point in time where I was like, oh, get this thing off my desk, and it was an excellent device, and it worked really well. Minus the little naggle of that free spinning input and the digital filter like selector, just they're free spinning, so it kind of, if I'd overshoot sometimes or undershoot or that kind of thing. Like I said, prosumers for the iDSD, and or someone that just wants it all-in-one that can do it all and not think about it. Looks lovely on the desk. It's small. It doesn't, it's just sits on the desk and it does everything you need it to do, and you don't have to think about it. It just works. So that's a fantastic device. And then I'd say the iCAN would be something you'd want if you already have a really nice DAC and you don't really care about having a DAC or that kind of thing, because you already have everything you want. You just want something that is an excellent amp, and it can, maybe you want to try tubes. iCAN is fantastic, and it has all the inputs and outputs you could ever want. So yeah, both are great for that. And I think anyone that's looking at these would be stoked, honestly. If you're already researching these, it's an easy one to say that these are excellent, because they are. They made a fine product here, and they look nice. They fit well on almost any desk. They're a nice shape and size, and I easily can recommend them and move on from there, I guess. So thanks iFi for sending these out, and they'll be going out here shortly. And thanks everyone for joining the channel. I'm gonna go take a nap because I do not feel very good. So cheers, have a great morning, afternoon, or evening. All right, everybody, catch you on the next one.